Most people go through life believing one dangerous lie. They think intelligence is something you're born with. You either have it or you don't. And from the moment school labels you as gifted, average, or slow, that label quietly follows you for years. Maybe you were the kid who struggled with math. Maybe someone once told you that you weren't smart enough. Maybe you started comparing yourself to people who seemed naturally intelligent. Faster thinkers, better speakers, people who always had the right answer. And little by little, you accepted a brutal conclusion: this is just who I am. But what if that's completely wrong? What if intelligence is not fixed at all? What if your brain is far more flexible, adaptable, and trainable than you've ever imagined? Because modern neuroscience is revealing something shocking. Your IQ is not a prison, it's more like a muscle. And most people are mentally living at a fraction of their actual cognitive potential without realizing it. Think about this for a second. Have you ever met someone who used to struggle academically, then suddenly became incredibly sharp later in life? Someone who transformed completely after changing their environment, habits, or mindset? That's not rare. It happens constantly. And there's a reason for it. Your brain physically rewires itself based on how you use it. Every thought, every challenge, every habit, every difficult problem you force yourself to solve, all of it changes the structure of your brain over time. Scientists call this neuroplasticity. And once you understand how it works, you start realizing something powerful. Intelligence isn't static, it's adaptive. The people who appear mentally superior are often just people who unknowingly train their brains more effectively than everyone else. And the scary part? Most people spend years accidentally making themselves cognitively weaker without even noticing. Look around. Endless scrolling, short attention spans, constant distraction, notifications every 30 seconds. People can barely focus long enough to finish a single page of a book anymore. And then they wonder why they feel mentally slow. Your brain adapts to whatever environment you repeatedly expose it to. If you train your mind for distraction, your concentration weakens. If you train your mind for shallow thinking, deep thinking becomes painful. But the opposite is also true. If you consistently expose your brain to challenge, focus, complexity, and learning, your cognitive ability begins to expand. This is why some people seem to get smarter every year while others mentally stagnate. One group is training their brain, the other is numbing it. And here's where things get really interesting. Studies on London taxi drivers found that the part of the brain associated with spatial memory actually became larger over time because they constantly navigated complex city streets from memory. Their brains physically adapted to the challenge. Let that sink in. Their environment reshaped their intelligence. The same thing happens to musicians, chess players, programmers, multilingual speakers, and elite athletes. Repetition plus challenge creates neural growth. The brain becomes more efficient at what it repeatedly practices. Which means if you spend years avoiding difficult thinking, your brain adapts downward. But if you deliberately pursue mentally demanding activities, your brain adapts upward. Now, does this mean every person can become Einstein? No. Genetics still matter. Some people are naturally taller. Some people naturally build muscle faster. The brain works similarly. But here's the mistake people make. They confuse limits with potential. Just because genetics influence your starting point does not mean your current intelligence reflects your ceiling. In fact, most people never come close to reaching their actual cognitive potential because they stop challenging themselves too early. They settle into routines, comfort zones, passive entertainment, predictable thinking, and over time, their brain becomes efficient at being average. You know what's fascinating? Children who are constantly told they are intelligent often become afraid of failure. Why? Because failure threatens their identity. They avoid difficult challenges because struggling makes them feel less smart. But children praised for effort instead of talent develop something incredibly powerful, a growth mindset. They begin associating difficulty with improvement, rather than inadequacy. And that changes everything. Because intelligence grows through struggle, not comfort, not certainty, not ego. Real cognitive growth happens when your brain encounters resistance. The same way muscles grow under physical stress, the brain develops under mental stress. This is why highly intelligent people often love difficult problems. Their brains become addicted to challenge itself. While most people avoid discomfort, mentally elite individuals seek it out. They read hard books, learn difficult skills, solve complex problems, They constantly push the boundaries of their own thinking, and over time, their minds evolve into something sharper, faster, and more adaptable. Intelligence is not just knowledge, it's cognitive flexibility, the ability to learn quickly, adapt rapidly, connect patterns, solve unfamiliar problems, and these abilities can absolutely improve with deliberate training. So how do you actually raise your IQ in practical terms? First, you must rebuild your attention span. This is non-negotiable. Attention is the gateway to intelligence. If you cannot focus deeply, your brain never fully processes information. That means no real learning occurs. Deep work is becoming a superpower in a distracted world. Most people's minds are fragmented beyond repair. They consume endless bursts of stimulation but almost never sustain concentrated thought. And because of that, their cognitive performance collapses. If you want to become mentally sharper, start training your focus like an athlete trains endurance. Read without checking your phone, study without multitasking, think without background noise, sit alone with difficult ideas long enough for your brain to wrestle with them. Second, deliberately expose yourself to mentally demanding activities. Learn a language, practice chess, study philosophy, learn an instrument, solve logic puzzles, write every day, debate ideas, force your brain to operate outside familiar patterns. Cognitive growth happens at the edge of difficulty, not in repetition of what's easy. This is why people who continuously learn throughout life often remain mentally sharp far longer than people who stop intellectually engaging with the world. Your brain is constantly adapting. The question is, adapting to what? Third, protect your brain biologically, because intelligence is not just psychological, it's physical. Sleep deprivation alone can dramatically reduce cognitive performance. Poor diet affects memory, focus, and mood. Lack of exercise decreases blood flow to the brain. Chronic stress damages concentration and learning capacity. Think about that. Some people spend years believing they are unintelligent, when in reality they are simply exhausted, overstimulated, sleep-deprived, and mentally unhealthy. Your brain is an organ, and like any high-performance system, it functions best under proper conditions. And here's something most people never realize. Your social environment influences your intelligence more than you think. If everyone around you avoids curiosity, mocks ambition, and celebrates mediocrity, your thinking slowly shrinks to fit the environment. Humans unconsciously adapt to their social tribe. That's why high-performing environments often produce extraordinary individuals. Standards become contagious. Curiosity becomes contagious. Discipline becomes contagious. But the opposite is also true. If you surround yourself with people who numb themselves every day with distraction and negativity, your brain slowly normalizes mental laziness. Have you ever noticed how some conversations energize your mind, while others drain it completely? That's not random. Certain people force you to think deeper. They challenge assumptions, introduce new perspectives, expand your mental world. Others repeat the same shallow patterns endlessly. Gossip, complaints, mindless repetition. Over time, the quality of your conversations shapes the quality of your thinking. Intelligent people are often extremely selective about what they allow into their minds because they understand something crucial. Your brain becomes what it repeatedly consumes. Now let's destroy another myth. High IQ does not automatically guarantee success. Some incredibly intelligent people fail miserably in life because intelligence without discipline is useless. Knowledge without execution changes nothing. Meanwhile, people with average IQs but extraordinary consistency often outperform naturally gifted individuals. Why? Because they compound effort over time. And that reveals something important. Intelligence is not just raw processing power, it's also behavioral. Your habits determine whether your cognitive ability expands or decays. This is why reading remains one of the most powerful cognitive enhancers ever discovered. Reading forces your brain to visualize, interpret, connect ideas, sustain attention, and process complex information simultaneously. It's like weightlifting for the mind, especially long-form reading. Books train deep thinking in a world addicted to shallow stimulation. And yet most people today consume information in fragments, headlines, clips, short posts, tiny dopamine bursts. Their brains become optimized for speed but terrible at depth. They know a little about everything but deeply understand nothing. And that creates a dangerous illusion, because modern culture often mistakes confidence for intelligence. Loud opinions, fast responses, viral takes, but true intelligence usually looks different. It looks thoughtful. curious, patient, open-minded. Highly intelligent people are often more aware of how much they don't know. They question assumptions. They seek nuance. They remain intellectually flexible instead of emotionally attached to being right. Ironically, the smarter someone becomes, the less obsessed they are with proving they're smart. There's also something incredibly important about boredom that nobody talks about anymore. Boredom used to force the brain into creativity and reflection. But now every moment of silence gets instantly filled with stimulation. Waiting in line, phone. Sitting alone, phone. Feeling uncomfortable, phone. People are terrified of mental stillness because they've forgotten how to think deeply without constant distraction. But some of your greatest insights emerge in silence, during walks, reflection, solitude, moments where your brain has space to connect ideas in the background. Constant stimulation suffocates that process. And here's the truth that might completely change your life. The biggest obstacle to intelligence growth is not genetics, it's identity. The moment someone says, "I'm just not a smart person," they unconsciously stop trying. They avoid challenge, avoid learning, avoid discomfort. Their behavior begins confirming the belief. But identity works both ways. The moment you start seeing yourself as someone capable of growth, your actions change, you become more curious, more persistent, more resilient during failure. And over time, your results begin reinforcing the new identity. This is why some people experience massive intellectual transformations later in life. Not because their brain magically changed overnight, but because their belief system changed. Suddenly they started reading more, learning more, practicing more, thinking more deeply, challenging themselves more consistently. And the brain responded exactly the way brains are designed to respond, by adapting. There's a famous idea that says the brain you have at 20 is not the same brain you'll have at 40. Your experiences literally sculpt your neural pathways. Every year, your habits either sharpen your cognition or dull it. Every day is either building mental strength or slowly eroding it, which means your future intelligence is being shaped right now by your current lifestyle. By what you consume, what you practice, what you tolerate, what you repeat. And honestly, this should excite you, because it means you are not trapped. You are not permanently defined by test scores, grades, or old labels from childhood. Some of the most successful thinkers in history were considered unimpressive early in life. Others were average students who became extraordinary through obsession, discipline, and relentless curiosity. Intelligence is far more dynamic than society wants you to believe. Think about how empowering that really is. Every difficult book you read strengthens your mind. Every focused hour of learning rewires your brain. Every time you struggle through confusion instead of quitting, your cognition evolves. The process feels uncomfortable, because growth always does. But discomfort is often evidence that your brain is adapting. Most people misinterpret mental struggle as proof they're incapable. In reality, struggle is usually proof that learning is happening. So the next time you feel mentally slow or incapable, stop assuming it's permanent. Ask a better question. What have I been training my brain to do? Because your current cognitive state is often a reflection of repeated habits. If you spend years training distraction, you become distracted. If you spend years training focus, you become focused. If you spend years avoiding complexity, complexity overwhelms you. But if you repeatedly engage with difficult thinking, your brain gradually transforms into a machine capable of handling more. And maybe the most important realization of all is this: intelligence is not about impressing people. It's about expanding your ability to understand reality, solve problems, create opportunities, and navigate life more effectively. A stronger mind gives you leverage in almost every area of life. Better decisions, better communication, better adaptability, better emotional control, better learning speed, the ability to think clearly while others panic. That's real power. Because in the end, the world belongs to people who can learn faster than everyone else. Technology changes, industries collapse, new opportunities emerge constantly. And the people who thrive are rarely the ones who started smartest. They're the ones who remained adaptable, curious, open to growth, mentally resilient. The people who never stopped evolving. So if you've spent years believing you're limited, maybe it's time to challenge that belief. Maybe your intelligence isn't fixed at all. Maybe your brain has been waiting for you to finally train it properly. And maybe the person you could become intellectually is far beyond the version of yourself you've accepted until now. Because the truth is simple. Your brain is always changing. The only question is whether you're changing it by accident or by design.